Well, we can trim it later, right?
Yeah.
All right, this is Proco podcast number 5. Today we are going to be talking about Endgame and a little bit of Captain Marvel. Today with me, my co-host is Alan Hunt. Alan, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Alan. I'm a staff writer at Proconian.
And for our guests, we have...
I'm Oliver Stanley. I'm a freshman. I don't really do anything.
And Mr. Reid, I teach some CTE classes in animation and game design, and also am the advisor for the Comic Club.
All right, guys, let's drop right into it. This is a spoiler alert. There will be spoilers ahead. If you have not seen Endgame or Captain Marvel, stop listening to this podcast now. So just initially, what were your first reactions from Endgame? I know all of us have seen it this weekend, so...
I enjoyed it. I thought it was actually very good. I thought that... I don't know, I think the only thing I was like, is thinking back. So this is an example. When I first saw Last Jedi, I do this with every Star Wars movie recently. I watch it and I'm like, oh, that was really good. And then I look back and I'm like, no, that was actually very bad.
Yeah.
So I tend to do that a lot with movies when I first see them. And thinking back, I thought it was kind of lazy when they did time travel.
Whoa, interesting.
Yeah.
Why do you say that?
Well, because it's kind of it's a very easy shortcut
To explain the entire
Yeah.
plot, you mean,
Me and my
yeah.
friend noticed, like, with Shazam, like, have you seen the film Shazam?
I haven't seen it yet, no.
Well, it's kind of, there was a part...
We're going to do spoilers on top of spoilers.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna spoil everything. Yeah, we're gonna be like, so in The Sixth Sense?
I can see dead people.
But there was a part where his, like,
Speak up.
sorry. His brother was, his,
This isn't Shazam.
foster brother was, he said, I'm a hacker because
Yeah.
of video games, so I found your mom. So I thought that kind of was like the same as in Endgame, how it was just kind of like time travel.
Yeah.
It was kind of a short, it's kind of a, I didn't have a really big problem with it, but it was kind of a shortcut.
No.
Yeah, I mean, a shortcut for a 3-hour long movie.
Exactly.
I guess in a way I'm glad they did it.
Yeah.
I mean, something that I noticed was how tonally different, like even from Infinity War, just how different the whole movie felt, because I mean, I feel like it was really noticeable how long the movie was this time around, whereas in Infinity War, like, it's sort of right from the get-go, like, they jumped into the action. It was like, you know, Thanos is coming, like, they really had, like, a whole agenda to get through, whereas this movie, there was a lot more of the, like, you know, reaction to the snap and everything that happened. Like, there was a lot more just, like, seeing how all these characters were dealing with the effects of the snap, which also made it feel a lot slower, but it was
also more personal. You actually got to see what these characters are going through.
It wasn't necessarily a bad thing, just because it made it so much more human, like, to see how, you know, despite, I mean, all these characters are really just reacting to what was happening and how they were trying to move forward, so I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah. I thought it was an interesting look when Hawkeye lost his family. Like, I don't really normally care about
that was
Hawkeye.
the opening scene, so it just got you right in your heart when you started watching.
I never really thought of it that way.
Yeah.
I think that leaving the theater, there were a handful of things. Instead of being like, wow, that was amazing, it was like, that could have been trimmed, and then that was the ride home, is thinking about a 3-hour movie needs to be pretty tight.
Yeah.
I feel like there's definitely times where they either tried to put a bow on something that didn't need to be wrapped up, or they tried to give us an idea of where they're going with it next. And you're like, do that in a trailer. Like, I felt like the interaction between Sam and Captain America there at the end was an emotional thing, but it didn't really do anything.
Yeah, it didn't really have any substance. Like, okay, you might be setting up for the next Captain America, but I agree with you. But that was the first movie, I think, in a long time, maybe since one of the Star Wars movies that I'd seen, that was like, you could feel the vibe in the room. Everyone in the theater, like, the movie was just like soliciting everybody's emotions. Like, you felt what they wanted to feel you, and you could feel that, like, ambiance in the theater. That was insane to me. I really liked that, because, like, over the recent years, like, Marvel has just turned into this monopoly of a franchise, and I feel like everyone was talking about it. But that was insane.
I think it's when you're seeing a movie, normally you don't feel like you're all together on something, but because of the structure of this movie and like the fact that we've seen all these movies building up to it, we know that this is kind of wrapping it up. It's like we're all here together sharing in this experience, and that's kind of like a team versus like a sport. Seeing it in a sport versus
yeah, honestly, that is actually a really good parallel, like the feeling of a team sport. I really like that because it's just something that, like, especially on opening weekend, like, everybody that's there is going to be pretty into it.
Yeah.
It's not a super casual crowd, so I liked that too, however.
And you might have your favorite player in a team in the same way with Marvel World.
Rooting for them in the movie, yeah. So what was your opinion on Captain America wielding Thor's hammer? I feel like that was one of the points of the movie
One thing I thought was kind of funny is I bet for maybe like 20 years, kids have probably bought a Captain America shield and Thor's hammer if they were into Avengers and probably held them at once, and now it's actually
yeah.
It was so awesome. I remember the moment that happened, you could just hear like an audible gasp, just like a collective gasp from the entire theater. It was such a great moment how they executed it, how he just sort of like caught it in his hand. I thought it was awesome.
Right when they needed it too.
Exactly.
And then Thor just looked at him and he was like, yeah, like I knew you were going to be able to do it. That was so funny to me.
How did y'all react to the opening sequence where all the Avengers or the remaining Avengers came and killed Thanos sort of so abruptly?
Yeah. It was kind of like, it was just extremely unexpected. He was just being like a little quiet man just sitting by himself, and then they just busted in. They thought that he had the stones would work, right? And that's why they were being so precautious. And why didn't they? The question is why didn't they cut his hand off in the first place?
In Infinity War, you mean? I feel like didn't they try to, but or Thor was like, I should have gone for the hand. I don't.
Or the head. Yeah.
Or the head.
Remember for the moment when Doctor Strange, Spider-Man,
Iron Man,
Star-Lord, Iron Man, all of them, they had him fully, and then
this is Infinity War.
Yeah, this was Infinity War, and they were trying to pull the gauntlet off, but I feel like they could have cut his hand off.
Yeah, and that would have done the same.
I think that it's not designed for the what ifs. Like the Marvel universe, you have to kind of suspend our.
You have to just go along with what happened.
Exactly, and say, that's probably there's probably a shortcut to all these things. And when you talk to people about, even with the new movie about the time travel components, it's like, he could have just gone to this and done this. It's like, well.
I think it's kind of...
Maybe you should write a fan fiction.
But I thought it was weird how... So Spider-Man had been dead for 5 years. Mm-hmm. Why was his friend still in high school?
Well, that's a question I actually had is... the snap going to affect Far From Home? Like, will Peter Parker, are they going to incorporate that in Spider-Man's upcoming movie?
Honestly,
but wouldn't his friend be in college? Because if there's...
Well, if he was Dust 2, when he comes back, he would be the same age. But there's a lot of weird questions because then they go back to school and then would half their class have already graduated? And then, I mean, I think it's, again, we're getting kind of lost in the weeds of this because...
Yeah, I'm sure they're going to have to address it, the displaced or whatever, because honestly, I actually read a theory online, which I thought was pretty interesting, that said that since Peter and a bunch of his friends were actually dusted, they thought that using that mechanic of the people that graduated and were now in Peter's grade, even though everyone else was gone, they thought that that's a way for them to introduce new characters like Gwen Stacy or other Spider-Man characters, using that time difference to now make them part of Peter's class, which I think was pretty interesting. But I mean, there are a lot of implications of everything that happened in the movie that I'm sure they're gonna have to sort out in the future, just because so much happened. Even with the whole time travel mechanic, I was really curious about how the different timelines they created would factor into it at all. And it's really interesting because at the end, where they show Captain America going to return all the stones, that could have been a whole movie in and of itself, just thinking about everything that
they did set it up like that. I feel I feel like they set it up where they could do that. But one question that I had is, in Endgame, I remember reading somewhere that Adam Warlock, who is a creature or like a person created by the Kree Nation, which is sort of in itself related to Captain Marvel. I thought he was going to be the one that defeated Thanos, or that's how it at least went down in the comics. And then they just changed it, I feel like, so much in Endgame. Do you have anything to speak on that?
I don't think so, but I mean, Adam was mentioned at the end of another Marvel movie and never really explored. So I don't know, they talked, what movie was that?
I feel like it was Guardians.
After they saw the Sovereign Fleet, which were the gold
Guardians
people.
too. Yeah.
They alluded to that, but never introduced him again.
Yeah.
They just went for, I feel like, the feminist lead and choosing Captain Marvel, which I think is definitely a selling tactic.
Yeah, for sure.
They kind of... I noticed that they also kind of nodded towards the original Guardians of the Galaxy in the second film, how Sylvester Stallone was the original Star. Was it Starhawk? Was it originally Starhawk?
He was the leader of one of the space
originally
teams.
The
I know what you're
Guardians of the
talking
Galaxy were, it was like Starhawk and I don't remember the rest of the names, but that was like the very old original series. That was before Star-Lord and Gamora and Drax and stuff. And so they made, the original Guardians of the Galaxy was in the second Guardians of the Galaxy, which I thought was kind of cool. But
that's cool.
Yeah.
Of the original 5 or so Avengers, they definitely all had their own moments to shine in this film, and I'm sure it was definitely intentional having them all survive the snap, because this was sort of like the last movie where all of them came together.
Well, they didn't all survive.
Yeah, that's
so many important.
Or I mean, like, not coming off of Infinity War, for this movie, they were all there in some capacity. Yeah. I kind of just wanted to ask you guys which characters resonated with you the most of the original Avengers, and maybe which characters do you feel didn't. Or do you feel like they had a proper send-off, or what was your reaction to, their final moments as a team?
Yeah, what death really affected you guys the most?
I know that Spider-Man definitely affected most people. I haven't been personally a huge fan of the new Spider-Man series.
Really? You either love the new actor or you hate him.
I gotta love who was the the first Spider-Man?
Tobey Maguire.
Yeah, I like Tobey. I know it's not right, but I did actually. Probably it's because I grew up watching those. I didn't like Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man. I don't think anyone did.
Yeah.
But I really did enjoy. I think that the new Spider-Man is who plays
Tom Holland.
I think he does a good job at playing him. But I've
he looks like a high schooler.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah.
It's weird getting used to a younger or more accurate version of him that's actually the right age. But I think a lot of people were affected by him because he made a bigger scene about it.
Yeah. In Infinity War.
Yeah, Infinity War.
Yeah.
I didn't. I was though. It did kind of bum me out about how Gamora was dead and 100% dead.
Yeah.
So they would have to get used to the past Gamora.
Yeah, but so the 2014 alternative timeline Gamora. I don't know how that's going to play out. I think in the next Guardians of the Galaxy, maybe it's going to be her getting introduced.
Yeah.
Or I don't know how they're going to do that.
There's a lot of time issues that we're thinking about with it, and then also now we have Black Widow. They're talking about that movie is going to be a prequel.
Yeah, it's going to be like her life. Yeah, I saw that too.
It's going to just be if the MCU is really going to be hardcore about managing timelines, it's going to become kind of ridiculous.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I noticed that though. So definitely Endgame set up a lot of chances for alternate movies, but if it also at the same time set up in a way that there's not ever going to be another Marvel movie because of how they finished it. And my friend was like, oh, there's going to be an after credits scene.
No, there wasn't any after credits.
But they, because I was like, dude, these are the rolling credits, it's done. But it played the noise from Iron Man 1, the first Marvel film, of him making his Iron Man suit, which is almost like full circle, which in a way would be like,
They're like wrapping it up. Yeah.
Someone said that they thought that was Wolverine's.
Oh my god.
The clink of Wolverine. But I totally agree. I think that it was Iron Man. I think we talked about it, but mine would probably be the evolution of Hawkeye and Ronin, and that was pretty emotional. It was, I think his reaction to wanting justice for this unjust world that he's living in, where his family's gone, but these, cartel members and Yakuza, he's running around killing everyone. Yeah. I think it was just like a really cool interaction.
What is the Hawkeye and Ronin? I've heard people talking about that. I haven't heard about
that. It's this, that Ronin is the character that he kind of turns into, that's like a Punisher type.
Oh, yeah. Like overboard vigilante.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was really touching too, like the scene between him and Black Widow for the Soul Stone, just because their relationship was kind of something that had been
significant throughout the MCU.
Even from the first Avengers, like they were always sort of on the fringe, like not super buffed up people, more just like special agent types. And I don't know, I felt that, their whole fight to be the one to jump over and retrieve the Soul
Man,
Stones.
I did not think it was going to be Black Widow. I thought it was going to be Hawkeye that ended up down there.
But I mean, I guess he still had his family to live for and that kind of thing,
Yeah.
There's not much that that Black Widow could have really turned into.
Yeah.
She definitely realized that this was like a bigger purpose that she could lend herself.
And through that time period, the 5 years, she had just been alone, obsessing, over this. So I think that made her happy.
I thought it was a cool show of that, how they had her, because in Infinity War,
her hair was blonde.
Blonde hair.
Yeah.
And so it shows that her hair has grown out to the red, but it had blonde on the sides of it. So I thought that was kind of cool to show the time that's gone by.
And also get her original redhead self back in the movie. I loved that. So I honestly, after watching Endgame, it looked to me that they were setting up Doctor Strange to be the next Tony. He's grown out his beard. He's kind of got that sardonic wit about him, I think, where he's kind of told, but the audience still roots for him. I feel like they're setting him up to be the next Iron Man. What do you guys think about that? For or not him be the new Iron Man, but that role of the comedic relief. Yeah.
I think definitely because, with Captain leaving and Iron Man leaving, you need a leader, and I think he's clearly the one who's got the most focus for it.
Yeah, him and Thor are extremely powerful. I don't think they're going to change any aesthetic about Thor.
Yeah.
What do you think about the change of this?
We haven't talked about that.
Speaking of the aesthetic of Thor, about
that fat suit,
60 pounds adjustment. Yeah.
Did the actor Chris Hemsworth gain any weight?
It was CGI.
Yeah, because he has the Men in Black movie coming up, so he probably had to keep his figure. But
wait, what?
Yeah, he's gonna be in the new Men in Black.
I didn't know that.
That's cool.
I liked his dreadlocked hair though. I thought that was kind of.
And then when he got ready, he got his weapons, and then his beard became braided, and I was oh, he's ready to fight.
Yeah, the lightning braided his beard.
He really looked like Odin because he was so fat and
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was really interesting because something that I had talked about a lot with everybody in anticipation of this movie was how powerful Thor had become and how much of a badass he became, and then just seeing that total
opposite.
Yeah, because it's something that even I didn't really consider, how in that final moment against Thanos, that was a direct, hey, you failed, I won. And so seeing him grapple with that, not as a god or anything, but just as somebody with depression was, a really, interesting angle that I didn't really expect from it. But I thought it was really cool to see that happen, just because it's something that really would happen in real life.
You don't see Thor at any point seeming vulnerable.
Yeah.
And now we see it in this movie, and
And all of Asgard was just gone, and so they're in the new Asgard, which is where is that?
It looked like random Canada.
Yeah, it looked like
Yeah. But that was super cool to see, like, how he was setting up a new life there, but also him being vulnerable as a character that we hadn't seen vulnerable before.
Yeah, and at the end there, it looked like he was about to take off with the Guardians. So that could be...
Yeah, I think he was in the Avengers and then the Revengers, and now I think he's gonna be a Guardian.
What if, it'd be cool if they did like the comic series, if they did a Hulk and Rocket movie.
Oh, I didn't know that Rocket and Hulk.
I think that's where Rocket Raccoon was first introduced in a Hulk comic.
Oh, that's super cool.
But when Thanos said in Endgame, "I am inevitable," you think that he said that because he saw himself do it in the future, and so he thought that by him saying that is like that means that he will win or something? Like, you think that he maybe, by saying that, might, like...
You're shaking your head now.
No, I don't know. I don't think...
I'm not saying it'll change time in any way, but I'm wondering if the reason he said that time was because he saw himself say it in the past.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think there's so many, like, time...
We keep getting caught up in these what-ifs with the time.
Because technically, at the point where they go back, they get the stones, they snap Thanos, he hasn't actually snapped. Like, that Thanos that we're seeing hadn't committed the crime. So this is like a preemptive attack against him for what he...
But he wasn't remorseful at all. That was fully what he was planning to do.
That's still the character's goal, but it's interesting to think about what technically happened is a person being punished for their crime before committing the crime.
That's true.
Something else interesting to think about, too, is the fact that on the battlefield when Tony is talking to Doctor Strange and he's like, yo, is this the version that we win in? He says, if I tell you what's going to happen, it's not going to happen. Mm-hmm. So that's sort of like when Thanos is sort of watching the tapes of him in Infinity War, like doing the snap and stuff, that, by that logic, that immediately shifts that whole reality. Like, that him knowing his future automatically changes it.
I didn't even think about
Strange's
that.
Logic. Yeah, that's something that occurred to me also, which I think is really interesting.
Yeah, Strange held up that one finger to Tony, and then you knew.
Yeah.
You knew that the 11-year run that Robert Downey Jr. had in the Marvel Universe was over.
Yeah, I guess we should talk about the snap that Iron Man had as well. Sort of like the ultimate culmination of his character, I guess, which I thought it was honestly pretty predictable, but at the same time it was such a powerful moment. I think it was really like
I feel like it was his send-off, and they gave him the most powerful role to play. Is that how it went down in the comics?
Well, none of this is really like aligns perfectly with the comics.
Yeah.
There's a couple comics, as looking this up, there's a What If was a whole series that they did in the 70s and early 80s, and there was a what if Captain America never had left the war and just stayed and fought the war. But I don't know that there's anything that really says that we have, like, the Infinity Gauntlet was another series in the 90s, but I don't know that it is, none of this is like inspired directly from the comics.
Yeah.
The MCU kind of lives in its own world.
It does. Same with DC.
I do like, though, when they put little tiny things from the comics inside the films. Like
what?
Like the Thanos putting his armor up as, like, the Scarecrow. Mm-hmm. That was
cool. Yeah.
That's really cool.
I like how they just put little tiny things to kind of hint at the original comics.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, was there anything that you were looking forward to see in the movie that you didn't see?
This is ridiculous, and I know it's probably everyone thinking. I thought Deadpool would maybe come out one of the portals and just say something.
Oh, yeah, that would have been so cool.
But I think maybe it's because Fox owns, like...
the licensing is still wacky.
Yeah.
I don't want to say add any more because it was already 3 hours long.
Yeah.
I think I could make a list, like I said, a short list of things that I just don't think added to anything.
Yeah, that could have been cut from the movie.
I described it kind of as like if you go to a wedding or a funeral or something like that where everyone has to say they're like, we're so sorry for your loss, or it's something that's sincere to those two people at that point. But if you're looking at it as a whole, everyone's saying the same thing, and it feels kind of like, all right, as a viewer, I don't need to hear every individual say. So.
Well, to go off the funeral thing, Tony's funeral, there were some characters there that I didn't recognize towards the back. There was one character. It was just like the guy,
some teenager dude.
Yeah,
me and my
he
friends
was
had
from
no idea.
Iron Man 3, I think.
I feel like I read something about that. Like he was gonna be like the next like.
I don't know. It was just
know.
they got the kid who, the actor who played the kid that Tony encountered, like in.
I forgot about that.
I'm not sure exactly where they were, but some really snowy area.
The like basement of the kid he stayed in, or like the cabin.
Oh yes, I do remember that. Oh my gosh, that's so cool.
Which is really cool to me because it shows that like they really
did go full circle, like you
they're
said.
Like trying to get all these details and really make it like a living universe in bringing like all these people that Tony has interacted with in the past. Even like that kid that a lot of people
forgot about.
It's just really cool to see that level of detail being put into the movies because like for people that are paying attention, that's like a really nice touch to have, and there's just so much detail and so many Easter eggs that I'm sure people are going to keep finding for months and months to come. I mean, that's probably one of my favorite aspects of the movies, just seeing all the thought that they put into it and all these little details. So I mean,
we don't. Do you guys want to get into Captain Marvel? We don't really
I don't think we're gonna.
We don't have enough time. But thank you guys so much for coming.
Maybe another show. And I while I'm here, I'll talk about our
talk about the club.
Comic Club. Yeah, we have 3 meetings left this year. One is going to be next. I don't know when this gets posted, but May 6th. That's next Monday, a week from our recording date. And it's going to be The Watchmen. So if you're a big fan of Alan Moore's book from the 70s, or I guess in the late 80s, actually, that's the title we're going to read there. The way that the club works is we alternate every other Monday. 1 week is going to be a specific title we're all reading. The other week is like a topic. So if you want to find something that works,
branches off of that.
We've had titles around American history, so titles like March that are really popular that people could read. And so if that seems like something people are interested in, they can definitely check it out. We have a Google Classroom for all of those posts, and or they can stop by my classroom A256 or look for information in the library. I call it the Comics Corner. That's where we meet, and it's in the back right of the library.
Yep, guys, you guys got to go check that out. Also, Proco is looking for new members to sign up for next year's class. Guys, we need some writers. Thank you so much for listening, and I think that's a cut.